Welcome back. We have been talking about health here today during our broadcast. And I mean, the climate crisis is very much a health crisis. It's a health crisis for humans, but it's also a health for our planet. And now we're going to hear a presentation how well or sick our planet currently are feeling with a planetary health check. And we will hear directly from Professor Johan Rockström with us here right now that will give an update, and we will talk more about this after the presentation. So welcome to our stage, Johan.
Thank you so much, Ingmar. Great to be with you. And what I want to do is to give you a scientific update, indeed, of the Planetary Health Check 2025. But I want to do that in the context also of why we need to bring the planet into the climate negotiations here in Belém, and then to kind of connect it with why we've now come to a point where it won't be enough to just do an energy transition, but really go all the way towards a safe landing within safe planetary boundaries. And I assume that the first slide is, I can just go. Yeah, thanks. So, to begin with, we have ample scientific evidence today that we are not only in the Anthropocene, meaning that we're the dominating force of change on planet Earth, we are, in terms of speed and scale of exponential hockey sticks in the wrong direction, deep into the Anthropocene. We are now at a point where we are at the peak of biophysical processes that are hitting hardwired functioning of the stability of the planet itself. And what you see here is the 2025 update on all the great acceleration curves. And unfortunately, we meet here in Belém at COP30, and all the curves continue looking as you see on the screen. The blue curves are the socioeconomic pressures. The green curves are the environmental impacts on the planet. You have the carbon dioxide and greenhouse gases, of course, but you also have the undermining of the carbon uptake capacity in the biosphere from loss of biodiversity, land system change, ocean acidification, all undermining ecological functions in the Earth system. We're just now publishing also the 2025 State of the Climate Report, which is connected to the report that was launched here in Belém yesterday, the Global Carbon Project's annual update on the global carbon budget, but also the latest Copernicus assessments of emissions in 2025. And unfortunately, I can tell you, it's dire reading. Number one, emissions continue rising. We are in 2025 projected to still rise emissions by 1% this year. This is a very, very bad result, given that we knew already in 2017 that we needed to bend the global curves latest 2020 to follow the carbon law of cutting emissions by half by 2030 to have a chance of bringing us back to a safe climate future within the climate planetary boundary of staying below 1.5 degrees. What you see here is a confirmation that also methane continue rising, nitrous oxide continue rising, air pollutants continue rising. The lower left-hand curve here is the one that worries me most, which is that the Earth's energy imbalance also continue rising faster than we had expected. So we have so much heat in the pipeline. That means that even if we turned off emissions today, we are inevitably going to breach 1.5, or very likely breach 1.5 degrees Celsius within the next 5 to 10 years. And then to overshoot, which still allows us to come back by the end of this century, but I'll try to explain how we can come back. But look at that graph further to the right, which is a bit of a reminder of the basis for the planetary boundary health check analysis. You have 10,000 years of time. You have temperature on the y-axis. The global mean surface temperature is, the zero line is the pre-industrial 14 degrees Celsius planet. To begin with, a reminder, the last 10,000 years have been this remarkably stable climate on planet Earth, 14 degrees Celsius plus minus 0.5 degrees Celsius. 0.5 is the maximum variability. So 14.5 is actually the warmest temperature on Earth since we left the last ice age. Now, as you see this vertical spike, it's the Industrial Revolution. It's our journey of fossil fuel burning into the globalized economy of today. We are at 1.4 degrees Celsius today. We're heading towards 2.5 degrees Celsius if we implement all the nationally determined contributions that are here at COP30 in Belém. But we are actually in a business as usual pathway all the way up to 3 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. And that's what you see on that graph to the right. Now, just a reminder again, 3 degrees Celsius, the last time we had that temperature on planet Earth, you have to go outside of the Quaternary. You're actually 4 million years back to find a planet with an equivalent heat level on planet Earth. So there's absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever that we can cater for a world, the world as we know it, on a planet that actually warms beyond even 2 degrees Celsius. 2 degrees Celsius is the highest temperature on Earth over the past 3 million years, the entire Quaternary. So that is one of the bases for why we need a planetary health check, and we use this data you see on the graph here as a reference point to measure the safe planetary boundaries. Now, what is worrying us even more right now is also that the rate of warming is showing signs of accelerating. Now, that is new findings. You see here that the last 10 years show a tendency of a very significant increased rate of warming in the atmosphere on the left graph and in the ocean on the right-hand side. Well, this is what we bring to Belém. The consequence of this is that we have to accelerate our way away from fossil fuels even faster than we had thought previously. Now, why is this happening? That is what makes us currently having to seriously consider revisiting the climate sensitivity of the planet, and for having a planetary health check is essential also in the climate negotiations. The reason for the accelerated rate of warming is very likely, and it's ongoing research, what you see here on the screen. One part is changes in forcing. Well, it's not the force because of accelerated rate of fossil fuel-based emissions. I mean, it's still increasing, but it's a leveling off. It has to be related to reductions in pollution. We're cleaning our cities. We're having effective policies for commercial shipping. And this is a paradoxical effect that it is fantastic for reducing premature deaths among humans, among us. However, it actually has an abrupt impact on bumping up warming rate, because aerosols not only interact with clouds to create more reflective shading, it also reflects immediately incoming solar radiation. But the trick is that that cannot explain the entire rate of warming. It also is very likely related to feedbacks. And feedbacks is what really worries us, because that is an indication of losing resilience in the Earth system. And the feedbacks are also increasingly understood. One is change in albedo. The planet is darker. The planet is actually absorbing more heat. This is because of ice melt, because of changes in forest cover. But it can also be related to the indications we see the carbon uptake on land is going down. Because we're breaching the planetary boundaries on biodiversity in land and freshwater, forests like the Amazon rainforest, temperate forests in Canada and Scandinavia, the boreal forest in Arctic, are showing signs of reduced carbon uptake capacity. Permafrost thawing, ocean heat flows, potentially also related to approaching tipping points. So all of this is what makes us really worried, because that is a sign of rising sensitivity of the system. In addition to that, we have the tipping element system that we're therefore potentially approaching. Here you have the 16 tipping point system that we have scientifically mapped. 6 of them are up in the Arctic. You have the AMOC, the Amazon forest, the 3 in Antarctica, the Antarctic ice sheet being the most sensitive one, the low latitude coral reef systems. And all of these have been mapped scientifically, and we have quantifications, which you see on the screen right now. The red burning embers here is the range of uncertainty in science. The darker the red, the further to the right, higher the confidence levels of actually pushing the system across a tipping point. The circles you see here are the median average point, meaning that's the likely temperature at which system will cross a threshold. This is evidence we used for the planetary health check. This is the evidence we used to provide scientific proof that 1.5 degrees Celsius is not a goal, it's not a target, it's a limit, it's a planetary boundary. Because look at the tops here that have all their median assessments at 1.5 degrees Celsius, admittedly with wide ranges of variability or uncertainty, but still the Greenland ice sheet, the West Atlantic ice sheet, abrupt thawing of permafrost, collapse of tropical coral systems, livelihood base for, between 200 and 500 million people in the world, collapse of the Labrador Sea Current, collapse of Iron Sea ice, all of them are in this range between 1.5 and 2. So this is what adds up to the concern here in Belém, that the rate of warming is going faster than we thought. It could be related with a planet that is down in resilience, and we're approaching tipping points that would bump warming even further. So this, of course, means that we need to have a planet health check. The Amazon basin is one of these tipping element systems where the check is fundamental. And to give you that example, look at this map. The red color is the deforestation of the Amazon basin. 17% of the forest cover is lost. Climate science shows that the risk of crossing a tipping point is at 3 to 5 degrees Celsius of warming. Let's see if you get that. Here you are. But if you factor in that we're breaching the biodiversity boundary, we're breaching the deforestation bound, land system change, we are changing hydrology. This means that the temperature at which the Amazon basin may flip over and irreversibly drift over from a healthy rainforest to a bush savanna is already somewhere between 1 and 2 degrees Celsius of warming. This means we're very close to a tipping point, even in the Amazon, because of multiple breaching of multi-planetary boundaries simultaneously. That would be a disaster for communities in Brazil, in Colombia, in Peru, in the entire basin. But it would also have an impact across the entire world, because this is a carbon sink of over 100 gigatons of carbon. Also, the AMOC. The AMOC also has a very high temperature of risk. It's uncertain between 3 and 5 degrees Celsius of warming, but we have observations that it's slowing down. This is the overturning of heat in the North Atlantic, one of the 3 thermohaline pumps that drives the heat exchange in the ocean as one of the regulating systems for the climate on planet Earth. It's slowing down, as you see from this blue blob just south of the tip of Greenland. It is slowing down because the melting of the Greenland ice sheet and precipitation changes, which dilutes heavy density saline surface water that flows in the red curve you see here from the Southern Ocean. This means that it sinks slower, slows down the AMOC, and we know that this, unfortunately, is a tipping point system that has collapsed in the past. And now we have ample or number of studies that have come out after the IPCC assessment showing that we cannot rule out a shutdown of the AMOC even this century. And the latest paper actually puts the risk all the way, if you look at the right-hand corner here, even at intermediate emission rates, the likelihood of an AMOC shutdown this century is as high as 37% in this latest modeling run. Now, this is, of course, a likelihood or a probability which is totally unacceptable, given that the impact will be catastrophic at the global level. So you can imagine that this is a rich set of data to support the need to define a safe operating space within the planetary boundaries for a stable Earth system that can support life as we know it. Here you have the 9 planetary boundaries, the basis for the whole planetary health check. I show this graph because this is where we were 150 years ago. We were right at the safe space on a healthy, Holocene, resilient planet. Today, here we are. 7 of the 9 planetary boundaries are outside of their safe operating space. So, everything I've told you so far is no surprise, because that's exactly what we expect when you breach the boundaries because we're undermining the resilience of the planet, not only climate, through climate forcing, but also through the undermining of the carbon uptake capacity and the buffering capacity of the biosphere. Now, this is why we brought this now to a new challenge for science, that we say, well, oh my God, we have a planetary crisis on our watch. We cannot update the science just every 7th year, which is what we've done over the past 15 years. We have to do it every year. And here you have it. We bring Mother Earth, the sick patient, to the doctor each year for a planetary health check. That's why we use this blood sample test equivalent to really hammer home the message. So here you have the 9 planetary boundaries, the safe levels in the green. The yellow's range here is the range of uncertainty in science. I call that the danger zone. We don't know if things go wrong there, but they can go wrong. And go deeper into the red, you have a high likelihood of causing irreversible changes for life support on Earth. It's not equivalent to a tipping point, but you move closer to risks of causing irreversible changes. And here we are with the 2025 update. Only 2 of the boundaries are in the green, safe blood sample diagnostic. Stratospheric ozone layer, which was in the red in the 1980s, was brought back as the world listened to science, signed the Montreal Protocol, and deviated away from existential risks. The second one is air pollutants, which I told you earlier has this Faustian bargain, to quote Jim Hansen. It is really good for human health, but it's actually bumping up warming as a forcing right now. All the others are outside, and they're still moving in the direction. If you add all this up, you end up with a conclusion that we are in danger, we're outside the safe space, but we're still in this uncertainty range. The window is still open to turn this around, but it's closing quickly. We need to move fast in a transformation. This is the journey. This is what our message to Belém close. Phase out fossil fuels in gray by 2050. Transform the food system from net source, the dark brown that you see here, to net sink in a reddish color. Scale CDR in orange. And in particular, bring us back to the safe space on all the nature boundaries, green on land and blue ocean. It's a sustainability transformation. It has to happen fast. We have the solutions, can be scaled, but boy, is urgent, and it's a transformation that has to happen at very large, rapid scale. So with that, I hand back to Ingmar, and looking forward to a bit of a discussion on this. Thank you.
So Johan, when I listen to you, I don't wish you were my doctor, because the planetary health check doesn't really, it's very worrisome. And I have listened to you many times, and the presentation is not getting more positive, it's getting darker. Before this COP meeting, there were one letter published by Bill Gates telling that we need also to focus on many other things, that we can't only go for climate. What's your take on that letter?
Yeah, thanks, Ingmar. So I'm really disappointed, and I was quite surprised, because I mean, Gates has had this position for a long time, investing in poverty alleviation and human health, but also engaging increasingly in climate and doing that from a technology perspective. Today, we know that we're so deep into the climate crisis that it's hitting so hard on poverty and in human health that you cannot separate the two. Actually, if we do not address climate change heads on, which means remove what's causing climate change, which is fossil fuel burning and ecosystem degradation, we will undermine and lose all the investments in health and poverty alleviation, which means that even the legacy of Bill Gates himself will get lost along the way. So we have no choice. We have to address climate change, poverty alleviation, and human health simultaneously and at a global scale. That's the point we've reached. And while I'm at it, I mean, there's also this tendency in this memo that he put out that we can handle temperatures above 2 degrees Celsius of warming. Well, I can say that that is not in line with the latest science. We have not seen temperatures above 2 degrees Celsius on planet Earth over the past 3 million years. We have only been around as modern humans on planet Earth for 250,000 years.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no support for that work. Actually, the latest published research shows that 2 billion people already at 2 degrees Celsius will live in regions of life-threatening heat. So, you know, you'll find enormous social destabilization if you would allow that to happen.
I was also quite surprised of that letter. And I'm thinking, I mean, Bill Gates, he should know the science. I mean, I have spoken differently before. What do you think made him change his mind? Is he scared of Donald Trump coming after him, or what do you think is the motive?
Well, of course, it's my speculation only. But I think definitely unfortunate that this is an adaptation to the Trump administration and its assault, not only on science, but its assault on global collaboration on human health initiatives. That this has to do with Bill Gates, you know, work on vaccine, on malaria, on tuberculosis, on infectious disease alleviation, and that he's kind of tactically trying to do what he can to avoid the risks that the federal government starts undermining the investments that also the Gates Foundation have been doing over the years. That could be one reason, but it's unhelpful. I mean, why should you and I spend time debunking things that have been debunked decades ago?
Yeah, I mean, it's time to listen to scientists and not billionaires to solve this.
Definitely, and work with billionaires like Bill Gates to solve problems. And I think that the work that he's been doing on green technology and innovation is a very positive contribution to decarbonize, you know, not only the economy, but also to help developing countries to move away and move into more resilient, decarbonized lifestyles, which I think he has a tremendous opportunity to contribute to. So it's a very unnecessary step.
Yeah, and he's still doing some investments. It's not that he's giving up. It's just a little bit schizophrenic. But that seems to be the playbook for many leaders nowadays. They are doing great stuff, like here in Brazil. The government have done a lot to decrease deforestation, but on the same time they allowed new oil drilling just 2 weeks before this COP meeting.
No, you know, this schizophrenia is not only among the billionaires in the private sector, it's particularly among many governments around the world. They're playing a double game still, and this is what we need to call out very clearly also from science, because, you know, we don't have time for that. The only way to have any chance of a manageable future is that 100% of finance and 100% of the investments and 100% of the businesses move in a direction that aligns with the science. We cannot have, you know, a minority little pipeline of activity that tries to do some good and build power plants and continue running a fossil fuel-driven mainstream economy on the other side. And that is what still believe that this is some kind of incremental journey. It's not. It's exponential and it's transformative and it's global level.
I had a Norwegian climate minister here yesterday that I interviewed, and he was very supportive that we need to, you know, let up the climate action and the time, etc. I asked about the schizophrenic in Norway, because they're doing great on like electric cars, etc., but they are also drilling more oil. And his kind of reason were that as long as we're capturing the oil, when we burn the emission, when we burn oil, it's not a problem. It's not the oil that is a problem. We just need to capture it. He had some arguments. Norway have been doing this for 30 years. When they drill oil, they capture the oil that are while they're drilling, but they're not really capturing it. It's burned other places. He said that that's what will now happen because you have the EU carbon trading system, etc., etc. What's your view on the Norway approach? Is it a realistic approach, or is it totally unrealistic, or something in between?
No, it's in short, it's not realistic, and data is very clear on this. And the reason why it's not realistic is simply that we run out of carbon budget. There's simply no space left. The remaining carbon budget is down 130 billion tons of carbon dioxide. We have a 50% chance of coming back to 1.5 after overshoot. And that is equivalent to 4 years of emissions today. So there's no room for new oil or new gas or new coal anywhere in the world.
But if you capture the emission...
I'll come back. 130 gigatons of carbon dioxide. Nobody can follow a pathway within the budget. It would require shut down the global economy in the next 5 years, okay? So the only reason, and this is, nobody really understands this fully, but the only reason why science can offer an orderly phase out of fossil fuels, meaning, for example, the most ambitious policy in the world is the one Norway has signed on to, which is the European Green Deal, which is 90% reductions by 2045, which is 50% reductions by 2035. Nobody is as ambitious. But that pathway, which is very ambitious, which requires 5% reductions per year, can only be achieved by factoring in massive carbon dioxide removal in the goals. So you have a net budget 130. Nobody can stay within it. So the models then add carbon dioxide removal technologies to give gross budget, which is roughly 500 billion tons of carbon dioxide. And therefore, what Norway needs to do is to phase out fossil fuels in a record speed and do CS. So you have to do both, because models have already factored in assumptions we will be able to scale carbon dioxide removal to the order of 5 billion of carbon dioxide per year from basically 2040 onwards until the end of the century, in order to allow for this early phase out of fossil fuels, thereby hold the 1.5 degrees Celsius line. So there is simply no way that you can, say that, well, we continue with or we increase that as long as we do it in a kind of a zero carbon way, because the removed carbon is part of the carbon component, which is in the DDR accounts, which is there to allow for the orderly phase out in the first step. So unfortunately, 20 years ago it worked, but today doesn't work anymore. And just to make things even more sharp here, not even that is enough, because in models, in PCC models, that gives us this orderly phase out, a chance to hold 1.5. There's also an assumption that the global food system will go from source to sink, which is also factored in. It's also been there to give us this gross budget. If we fail with the food system transition, there's even less room for oil and gas.
Yeah. And this is a very good argument. I will try to bring you together next time, because when you hear Opticon talking, they're really good at talking, not always good at following reality.
Oh, sure. And there's this interesting argument that I often hear from Norwegian politicians that, we drew the cleanest oil in the world. So therefore, as long as there's a demand in the world, we should supply, because we have the cleanest production system. And the problem is that when everyone thinks like that, you never close the budget.
No. You're here as co-chair of a new initiative, the Planetary Science Pavilion. And it's the first time there's a pavilion for science that are working together with the COP presidency. Can you tell how you're doing this in a more concrete level? And are you hopeful this COP will work differently? Negotiations and will listen to you and your colleagues.
So let me answer that in two parts. And on the first part, yes, it's a first step. For the first time, there is from the president, basically an instructed myself and Professor Carlos Nobre, leading Amazon climate scientist in Brazil, set up a science pavilion. So the Planetary Science Pavilion is here to raise the of science but also be a scientific guide to help support the negotiations as we move along. And we're early in the negotiation, but actually, right from our discussion here, I'll go straight back and have a meeting with scientists to make first science statement to assess the decision so far from a scientific perspective and help to correct and move along. So it's too early to say if we'll see it, but what I can say is that it has already attracted a lot of attention from the scientific committees who are here, but also a very well curated program where we're releasing latest scientific reports of relevance, like the carbon budget, the new insights in climate science, the 10 muscles in resilience. We had a very important climate finance discussion today on how to enable to de-risk the phasing out of coal in developed countries. And it's great that we partner with you also. We don't have time to kind of really reach out with the science, but whether or not we will really succeed, because success in my view is not to have a great program.
No.
The success is really to influence what's happening in the negotiations. So let's see.
Are you positive, negative, or somewhere in between? But what is your kind of thinking now?
With regards to the science pavilion, actually quite optimistic. I think we are in a very good position, and there's a constructive atmosphere, and there's a strong support from the COP presidency. So André Correa do Lago and Anna Tone and the team, they really want this to succeed. So I think that is good. And I also think actually that so far the discussions here in Belém have not derailed in any way. There's no big hiccups, and I think that's also a sign of a well-prepared presidency. So let's see how it moves along. But there's a lot at stake here, because we need a roadmap for fossil fuel phase-out and a concrete path to invest in nature. And let's see if we can take it all the way to that point.
I really hope we will, but what I feel already is that this is a COP of truth, so a failure means that the truth will get out there, and I think more and more people are starting to understand that we can't just be passive in the climate crisis. We need to step up for the health of our planet, and maybe it's time to listen to the scientists instead of billionaires when we try to solve this problem. You're not going away now, because we have another session with you that's all about making business step up and act according to science. So you will be back, and I will invite my co-moderator here after we have played a short video, and you will take over. So stay with us.